how did you get into genetics? Is that something that you've always been interested in for a long time?
Yes, I hinted. I wanted to become a paleontologist, a dinosaur scientist, when I was 4. And I was quite stubborn. I was going to become a paleontologist. And then when I was 11, the movie Jurassic Park came out, and that gave me the link from digging up bones with a toothbrush in the desert to working in a lab to work on a dinosaur. And that got me into genetics. And as I said, during my studies, I grew up and found other interesting areas to apply this knowledge to.
Surely you have ample time or maybe opportunities in the future to always do a full circle back into the dinosaur realm, Daniel.
It's still interesting.
With your toothbrush, that dream still exists for you, I believe.
Absolutely.
So you're from Austria, and then you went to university in the UK, is that correct?
Yes, to Manchester, which is one of the leading biotech universities there. And the English school system is great. It's quite similar to the US system and quite different to the system in my country. So that's where I went for 10 years.
That's incredible. And then upon graduating, you started your company relatively immediately, it sounds like?
Already during my studies. So while I was writing my PhD thesis, I already had the first analysis machine. And during my free time, I was starting to develop genetic tests and learning the technology. And then I still had to do military service in my country. So I went back home and actually I could do a research project in a hospital instead. And all the time in my free time, I was working on the company. And then eventually I was free to do it full time.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's not like you worked in the corporate world for about 10, 15, 20 years and then started a company. You started a company essentially while you were still a student, which is very, very uncommon. Of course, a lot of people around the world do it, but for the people that we've had so far on the guests on this podcast, a lot of them has worked, from 5 to 10 years before taking a gamble on themselves. What was that like? Do you remember? So what exactly did your business do from day one? How did you manage it between being a student and then being a business owner? And it also sounded like you then had to go back home, take a little break, and then kind of resume. And it sounds quite hectic. How were you able to kind of manage everything?
Actually, I had quite a lot of free time during my PhD thesis. I progressed quite well. I'm a hard worker, so I focus on things, and that gave me time to also focus on another thing. I was looking for a business idea. I was juggling a few different things, and that was one of them where I actually progressed a little. And they had a business plan competition where I decided to take part. So that kind of kickstarted the whole thing. And it's from an idea to actually start to do something. And so that was good. Starting so early, I think has a big advantage. So if you have nothing, there's nothing to lose. So it's quite easy step if you dare to do it. The disadvantage is you're building a company without any understanding of what a normal company culture is. Mm-hmm. So I assume we're making a lot of mistakes that you wouldn't make if you had worked in an environment. But being a startup, we were always broke. So we always hired people right out of university who didn't have very high salary expectations. So they had no idea what a normal company was like. So I think we built our own weird culture that way.
It sounded like it worked. What did your company do from day one? Like, what was its mission? Or
so we were 3 people. The idea was to do genetic testing for disease prevention. So that already puts you into the field of medical genetics, which is a whole different level of regulation compared to lifestyle genetics like weight management or ancestry. So we already started in a difficult category, and we bought machines. I was a scientist. We had one other guy doing the science, and we had one business guy, and that was it. And then we started developing the product. Initially, we didn't have an IT person, so we outsourced a lot of that to freelancers in India and Vietnam. So everything very low cost and very low quality at the beginning. And then we started creating genetic programs. So one of them was a genetic test for thrombosis, and there's certain prevention you can do to stay healthy. And that's how we started. So we developed more and more products. Initially, our idea was B2C on the internet. but that was in 2009, so way before all of this social media advertising existed, and that didn't work at all. I wasted a lot of time sitting in doctor's offices for an hour to get 3 minutes to pitch my product. So that didn't work. So we had to pivot, and we pivoted to B2B. So we had other people who found our concept interesting. We white labeled our products and services, and then they sold, and we could focus on developing the next test, the next technology, and so on.
You are a product company, and you mentioned that do a lot of these AI cosmetics. You also do supplements. You white label these, or do you have your own brands that you own as well? I know you mentioned B2B, like other companies have more consumer market facing. But if someone were listening to the podcast and like, wow, I'm really into nutrition, I would love to up my game and be able to invest in my body with some sort of personalized testing. Is it something that's available right now in market that they can go check out? Perhaps, what about your AI, the cosmetics as well, in case people are curious?
Yeah, so it's a mix. So in Europe, we do white label for large companies. So we do new products. It's under the brand of a large company, and we're quite flexible. We build machines and technologies and new things to fulfill these requirements. We have our own brand for smaller B2B, which might be a nutritionist. In the US, we actually founded a company called Routine Vitamins. We applied to the Techstars Accelerator, and we built a great team there. And essentially, they're building the US market. So that's the way to get those products. You can buy a blood test or a DNA test, and the algorithm will then recommend the nutrients to you. You can check out on the dashboard what nutrients you would need, and then you can get exactly these products. So
that's amazing.
So that's our presence in the US. It's a separate company, but we helped found it. And
that's amazing. And what about do they also do the cosmetic products as well, or is that just strictly the personalization of supplementation?
It's just the supplementation and testing.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I know we skipped forward a couple of steps, but for someone like myself that's really passionate about just overall like recruiting and building teams and companies, I did not want to go further in the podcast without addressing the fact that for someone who started a company out of PhD program and scaled a company to about over 70 people, that is really, really amazing. And I think that's credit to where credit is deserved. But from someone like yourself that did not have like a corporate career, or you didn't start like 5-6 other successful companies before, what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned for just almost kind of muscling, brute forcing and building a company from a very unconventional start and being able to scale it? Like, what's one couple things that you have learned along the way, tips, tricks that you would like to share to the audience, and in case that, you know, people who are listening are also building their own companies? And you kind of, it seemed like for someone who started a company like you did, you know, you just have to figure things out as you went and get smarter and evolve as a scientist, evolve as a leader, a business operator. Would love to just hear like a little bit more about your experience there.
Yeah. So initially I was blessed with a very good team. So up to 70, the atmosphere in the company was very positive. People are friends. So I hired my friends, and other people hired their friends and family. So we are a very friendly bunch. I know some people say, don't do this, don't work with your spouse and so on. I did the opposite. So I'm surrounded by great people.
Actually, a lot of people say don't do that. So how it's very, I think the reason why people say that is because it's very difficult there's no clear line between treating someone as an employee versus someone as a friend. And that line can be easily exploited or blurred, or just maybe non-existent. So like, how were you able to successfully hire a bunch of friends, and your colleagues and their colleagues hired a bunch of friends, and still be able to maintain a productive and collaborative and positive culture and atmosphere?
You can't work with every one of your friends. That's definitely something. You must have a matching attitude to work and so on. So I've never had an issue with my friends. Working with your spouse is a little more complicated because there's no respect at all. and not what you say, but how you say it is important, and all of that stuff. So that has a few difficulties, but also a lot of advantages. So you can talk about things that fascinate you at home and so on. So if you can handle it, I highly recommend it. So yeah, find the right friends that you like working collaboratively with, and then see if it works out. And if it doesn't, you should be able to walk away without it being an issue. But I've never had that problem. It was great working with my friends. And actually, the book from Tony Hsieh, who founded Zappos, was the one that inspired me to do this. I was worried about hiring or working with friends and founding with friends, and then that book just changed my opinion. He said he hired all his friends, they hired their friends, they hired their friends, and it was the greatest company culture. I wanted that.
That's amazing. I think if there's a way for people to hire some of their good friends, I think everyone would do it. I think it's just about cracking the code and trying to do it properly. But that's actually a great book. I read it a long time ago. Speaking of future, what is the one thing? Do you have a dream? Do you have like a big goal that you want to realize into the future in terms of new products and services that you want to develop? And you've done supplementation, you've done cosmetics, you've done AI. Is it just iterating these three main kind of products, or what if you could develop maybe one more, or is there a North Star that really excites you that you're just trying to kind of grab for to push your company in the field of genetics into the future? Is there something that you really want to do?
Yes, and that's actually why I started this company, not because of dinosaurs, as I said, that was before, but I realized that I wanted to solve one of the big problems, and one of the big problems that we have is genetic diseases. As I said before, we used to have the saber-toothed tiger. He caught you if your genes weren't optimal, and we had constant filtering out of the gene pool. And now, thankfully, we have the supermarket, and people with short legs can also survive. But we start to accumulate more and more problems, genetic mutations that we fix with medication. If you have asthma, you get asthma spray, and you live on and have children with asthma, but they're also happy and healthy. So we're getting into an area where we are going to have too many genetic problems that we eventually need to fix. So my idea was I want to eradicate genetic diseases. They are not supposed to be here, and we can fix them eventually. And that's actually how I started the company. I wanted to fix genetic diseases, but a student won't be allowed to meddle with people's genes to fix the broken genes. So I did a several step plan. So the first plan was, okay, let's do lifestyle and preventive genetics. Let's just observe and give advice. And then we are moving towards a solution, not just looking into the genes, which is what we've done so far. We're providing solutions. So one of them is personalized supplements or personalized cosmetics to counteract what we found in your genetics. And in the future, we're going to fix genes. So we have invested in a company that does gene therapy, and it's working on gene therapy to actually fix broken genes in kidneys. That's one area. And there are many more severe diseases that really should not exist. And I want to play my part in eradicating these genetic diseases, so everybody has the same healthy start at life.
Wow. So theoretically, there is a scenario where in the future people don't have to suffer from genetic illnesses.
Absolutely.
And live forever.
Yeah. So actually, I myself have a rare genetic disease. There are around 8,000 rare genetic diseases, and I have Alport syndrome, which is one of them. And it causes I'm still healthy now, but it causes my kidneys to deteriorate over time. Oh, wow. So at the age of 60, I'm going to need a transplant or dialysis. So that's actually one of these diseases. It's quite mild in my case, so that's fine, but I'm not too worried about it. That's not why I became a geneticist. As I said, it was dinosaurs, but that's one of the ones where you really cannot do much about it. And in the future, we're going to be able to fix this. And this is still quite a mild disease. There are genetic diseases where the mother brings the births a child and then watches this child to die over 10 years as the muscles start to deteriorate and so on. So very, very severe diseases that should be cured. And that's what I want to play a part in.
Wow, I think that's incredible, and I hope you continue to get a step closer to making that happen. One more thing, what about just kind of common colds and sicknesses? Do you think it could also reach a situation where people just don't get sick anymore, or it's either you don't get sick anymore, or if you do get sick, you can just recover significantly faster, right? Maybe your body just has the right tools equipped to just process it or get rid of it much more efficient than it can now, or I don't know, is there any science to that you can connect to what you're doing or just your field? I'm just curious.
That's a tricky one because viruses are continuously fighting against any defenses that our immune system can make. And we've seen this. The different variants of COVID are all getting around the immunity and the vaccinations. I do see a potential where we could create an mRNA vaccine like we've developed for COVID that is so broad spectrum that it can predict all sorts of variants that could come from a certain virus. And I think that could be a very powerful technology to improve this. I don't think we'll ever get rid of viruses. They are just so similar to us. That's the problem. They're using the same instructions as our cells have themselves. And the instruction are just build a virus rather than do your normal cell stuff. And they're hijacking our natural processes. And that makes them so difficult to fight, because anything that disrupts their replication is also a problem for our cells. And so I think these will stick with us, but the mRNA technique is awesome in fixing or creating vaccines. I think there's a lot of potential there.
I was just genuinely getting excited about the future that you're painting with eternal life and no genetic diseases. I just thought, we can continue with that momentum, being like, yeah, maybe no viruses, but who knows? Maybe it's a possibility. But if I can maybe just ask one more thing, typically the best way we love to end these podcasts is by asking if there is one advice that you want to share for the audience, just everything you learned from whether it's having a successful career, building a company, scaling a company, management, it could be anything. The biggest advice that you would like to share with someone who wants to hopefully follow in your footsteps, what would it be?
Go as fast as you can. Don't make it perfect. Launch it soon. Be ashamed of your product, but launch as quickly as you can. That's the number one advice by far. If you build a business, if you wait until it's perfect, your competitors are going to be far further than you, and you're going to have you will have built a product that was wrong for the audience. So launch as quickly as possible and learn, and then react quickly when you get feedback. That's my absolutely number one advice.